Okay, everybody got snacked up, got your hydration, your bathroom breaks. We're going to get started again in just a minute or so. Some of you guys are troopers. You've been hanging out with us presentation after presentation. We're so glad that you came today. So I don't know if we need to start the recording, maybe not, but just go ahead and assume it's on maybe. Okay, welcome you guys. You made it to the final presentation of the afternoon, and we're going to be talking about infra-low frequency or ILF HD neurofeedback. And I know we have a mix of people in this room, some people who are very experienced, some people who have done different modalities in neurofeedback, like Antonia, and some people maybe this is new. So I'm going to try to speak to all of our experiences and see if we can have more of a discussion today. We'll have a presentation as well. So my name is Carrie Scott. I'm the program director here at Healing Pathways. I have a private practice as well called Utah Neuro Wellness Clinic. But at Healing Pathways, we have a neurofeedback program of, I would say, maybe 13 therapists or so that are actively practicing. We've had more that have even been trained than that. But most of our neurofeedback happens in this building. So thank you for coming and touring our space and checking it out. Have you guys had a chance to see the neurofeedback rooms? Did you look in there? So you have a sense of how the setup goes. This is Tawna Loveless, and she's our assistant neurofeedback program director. She's recovering, so we're going to have her assisting, but I'll probably take on most of the speaking today. Do you want to just hit the space bar? The next, okay. So maybe before we dive in, I just want to get a sense for where everybody is with neurofeedback. So I know some of you, I know Morgan is on our neurofeedback team, Lisa is on our neurofeedback team. I know Stephanie is a neurofeedback practitioner over at Phoenix Rebellion. Antonia has done about 7 years of a different kind of neurofeedback. Any other neurofeedback experience? Clinton, I haven't met you yet. Sam, okay, so nice to put a face with your name. Okay, and you have a lifetime of experience with neurofeedback.
Yeah, a few years, like on and off, CMHC work.
Yeah.
And then I just got that new job with Haven.
Okay, and your dad does neurofeedback, right? So I've heard you've kind of been raised with this for a long time. So, okay, so we have a lot of different experience. And then is this anybody's first experience with neurofeedback? Has anybody, okay? Justin, right? Jason. Oh, sorry, Jason. Okay, all right, we got a few. And then maybe we've talked about it. Okay, we talked about it a little bit. So, and we can call it first. Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll kind of try to speak to different levels. What I hope is that we can just talk and have a conversation about a lot of this. I wanted to play a short minute clip to give an introduction for neurofeedback. Would you mind hitting that?
What do we know about the brain?
Might need
the
to
right
turn it
side
up.
of the brain deals with how we relate to people and energies around us. The left side of the brain
Sorry,
deals
give me 1 second. Sorry. Oh, sorry, did I just kick over something? Okay. Sound is going to be important, so I want to just make sure we cover that really quickly.
I do, yeah. While we're on break. Yeah, sure.
Okay, we're going to try this one more time.
I actually have an above ground part, and I have an underground part. I'll take both. Okay.
what do we know about the
Still not loud enough. Is there a volume on the projector, maybe? Is it coming out of the projector? I don't know. It's an HDMI cord, so it should be. Okay. Yeah, no, it should be.
what do we know about about the brain?
Can you hear it?
The right side of the brain deals with how we relate to people and energies around us. The left side of the brain deals with daily tasks, like planning, working, and shopping. The front of the brain acts as the brakes, where ideas pause and get organized before we act on them. This means we know whenever you experience a psychiatric or physical symptom, it's linked to one or more areas of your brain. And you can alleviate that symptom by improving your brain's functioning. In other words, the better your brain functions, the better you feel, mentally and physically. For this reason, neurofeedback has been developed as a cutting-edge scientific approach that puts the brain front and center in your health and wellness. By treating your brain directly, neurofeedback can alleviate symptoms of disease at their root cause.
Is there a way to get the volume up on this by any chance? I just did an HDMI to HDMI here.
Okay, so it should, like in there. Do you know where you select your sound outputs or where your system settings
it's
are?
all.
Maybe use the gear sounds.
Speakers, maybe this one?
Let you guys know about what we're doing for the open house is 10 free intake sessions. So it's a 2-hour intake. It's worth $200. So if you have anyone that's like seriously interested in what neurofeedback is, then they can come to an intake with me. And
Okay,
we go
let's
through
see
like
if that.
symptomology and different things about who they are, so you can see how the neurofeedback can help their specific needs. So we've got 9 more signups right here.
What do we know about the brain?
Session there.
It's louder.
I'll put that up here. And then we also on the table
Your
have
volume
some
up
like
as far as it.
gift cards and different things like that. Did you guys hear me? Sorry.
It's for the recording.
Right. Yeah, read up. Sorry.
I mean, it's louder than it was, but
Any
Okay, that might
questions
be
that I can
the best
answer?
because it's it doesn't look like it's affecting it.
dang. Okay.
We'll go through any.
It's not
Okay.
even.
I'm sure. There's lots of questions.
Is it plugged into HDMI 1 or 2?
It's into.
2?
Yeah.
That's not the one.
Okay. Here is the this is the remote for this, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but we couldn't get the.
No batteries.
Here, let's see if it works now.
Oh, you got batteries? Oh.
I got it turning up.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Now we just need the picture back.
Oh, Yeah, I did it. It was good. I feel like it's something because of the NCE. Yeah. Like, but then again, it's like it's a lot of communication. Like it gives you a taste in yet. It's a lot of lunch. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's my brain. I don't know. Because I feel like the NCT was a lot of like point this, like historical stuff.
Do you have a USB-C? Do you have USB-C?
I think so.
All right, let me.
There's one.
Yeah, right.
So now it's not showing.
I did a lot. I don't think
NCMC prep,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You pay a lot for it.
Okay.
Only it's not as intensive.
Oh, no, different.
Oh, there you go.
You pass, like,
Yeah.
but if I pass, I'll do
The back and
Like
forth.
all of a sudden stop just like
Is there a TV I could plug into a TV? If we could pull in from the neurofeedback room?
And it's their
yeah,
access.
yeah.
Can we just see if I can do that?
But it's just kind of holding them there while you go like for a few minutes inside.
Unless you're taking very high
You set up the memory. So you're like lasering in on a certain memory, but you're just holding their gaze. David Grant had a it's very relational. It's very so it's easier to if you just use that exactly less, right? And so like I failed. And I'm like, wouldn't that be so much? Yeah, like you failed, like she's told she's failed therapy. And I'm like, she failed.
That's traumatizing. And it's never stopped.
So sorry, you know. Yeah, it's like I guarantee you're gonna feel better, right? Like my knees go around. Like so I thought I don't know. It's easier, like there's work and you're supposed to feel issues. And I've been kind of great and yeah. So I don't really drive that.
Changing market.
Like you're like so I don't know, that kind of turned me off like to get certified. That's not really my
Thanks. Excuse me. Okay, excuse me, Stephanie. Gonna
And so it's really like, it's a kind of, it's a journal. So Matthew, you can say with journals to them with my dominant hand, and they answer with my non-dominant hand. So this is an activity that
got this.
it's actually.
Hopefully this will work. I don't have the remote. I'll get the remote. Let me run and grab that.
Absolutely, and after you've been doing it for a while, like, you can't believe what comes out of those ones. You're like, wow, that's, first you think you know everything about what your non-dominant is going to say, but that's really enlightening.
I could do it on.
Most of my work is really not. I think that honestly, I feel that
How do you get to the end of these?
it's kind of a spiritual awakening.
There we go.
It's about
Yeah, okay, perfect.
All
All right.
What do we know about the brain?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, take two, guys. We're in business, I think.
Here's the second.
Thank you, Blair. Okay, thanks for being patient. Hi, Liz. Okay, can everybody see this? Okay, hopefully this will work for us. Sorry about that technical snafu. Hopefully you can hear the video now. We'll go ahead and play that one more time.
What do we know about the brain? The right side of the brain deals with how we relate to people and energies around us. The left side of the brain deals with daily tasks, like planning, working, and shopping. The front of the brain acts as the brakes, where ideas pause and get organized before we act on them. This means we know whenever you experience a psychiatric or physical symptom, it's linked to one or more areas of your brain. And you can alleviate that symptom by improving your brain's functioning. In other words, the better your brain functions, the better you'll feel, mentally and physically. For this reason, neurofeedback has been developed as a cutting-edge scientific approach that puts the brain front and center in your health and wellness. By treating your brain directly, neurofeedback can alleviate symptoms of disease at their root cause.
Okay, so that's just a sort of a primer, an overview about neurofeedback. And we have some new people too. Hi, welcome. My husband kind of thinks of me like the dad in My Big Fat Greek Wedding who thinks Windex solves everything. So he thinks that's me with neurofeedback, and I kind of am. And other neurofeedback practitioners are kind of shaking their heads because it's dealing with the nervous system. It's helping the brain and the nervous system learn how to be better self-regulated. And so many things are connected to the functioning of the brain and the nervous system. From developmental trauma and the way that the nervous system even forms, through instabilities that we experience, like bipolar we just talked about in the last, that kind of the brain isn't able to hold on to its functioning steadily, or I'm in hypervigilance, right? Or I'm having issues with my sleep. There's a whole host of things that neurofeedback can help with. Some people just use it for peak performance. Because it helps athletes, Olympic teams have used it, that kind of thing. So I might be a little bit like that, My Big Fat Greek Wedding father, but truly it's something that actually really works and really helps. The beauty of neurofeedback is that there's nothing invasive. We're not introducing anything into the body, and it's non-pharmacological. So there's not that side effect issue that you might have with some pharmaceuticals. What we're doing is teaching the brain and the nervous system how to observe its own activity so that it can self-correct. And the brain knows so much more than we do about how to do its job. So it's a way to help the brain and the nervous system to become better self-regulated. So it's a pretty cool modality. And let's go ahead and skip over here. So it's sort of like having a gym for your brain to go and exercise in. We're learning how to have better inhibitory control, how to relax sometimes, that kind of thing. And it's like we're holding up a mirror to the brain. So it's not like, you've heard, some of you are clinicians here in the room, we talk about operant conditioning, right? And that's where Pavlov gives the dog some food. Every time the bell rings, they start to salivate when they get that cue, right? This is different. We are, sometimes we talk about it in terms of rewarding the brain for doing certain activity, but what we're actually doing is, it's like, have you ever been to a dance studio and you see the mirrors around? Why do dancers use mirrors?
To improve form.
They can't see what they're doing unless.
Yes, yeah. And so when you get that feedback of what your brain is actually doing, the brain's like, oh, I'm doing that. And then it self-corrects. So it's like we're using neurofeedback as a gym to help the brain learn how to train. And then therapy, in addition to that, is like the personal trainer. And so it's a really beautiful way to address so many different issues and so many different presentations for clients that come to our office, or for you if you are dealing with issues, to be able to address things. We can address things neurochemically with medication or neuroelectrically with neurofeedback. Neurofeedback has been around for years and years and years, and there's a lot of research and history behind it. So we're not adding anything into the brain, we're not removing anything to the brain, we're just helping the brain perform at its peak capacity. So we at Healing Pathways use the Othmer Method, which is based on these infra-low frequencies in the brain. We're going to talk about what those are. There are other methods as well, and Tawna can talk about the QEEG methods that use more of the training, the frequency band trainings and things like that. There are other types of neurofeedback that will introduce a little microcurrent into the brain, and the brain will organize its activity around that. So there's different modalities. Because we are trauma focused here, and because so many nervous systems of trauma impacted people are often sensitive, they're stuck in fight or flight. There's just a lot of difficulties with helping those people regulate. We find that infra-low frequency is often very, very effective with this population. When I talk with practitioners who use multiple methods, this is the method that they say helps this population the most for them.
Oh, and I wanted to just mention real quick. So that's the amplifier that you see on the picture there.
Yeah.
Let me do this. So the amplifier, so when we put the electrodes on the scalp, the electrodes are just reading the person's brain waves. So that's why she says, like, we're not introducing something into the brain. And so the electrodes are reading that and then reflecting them back on a screen. Like this TV is from one of our neurofeedback rooms. It's reflecting your brain waves. So your brain is like that mirror. You have that mirror of the activity, and then you get rewarded. It's a reward system. So when you hit a frequency that we are asking the brain to hit that's healthy for it, you get rewarded every time that happens, and the brain wants to do that more and more.
So we're just listening into the brainwave activity, right? And we use an EEG for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So why do we use infra-low frequencies? So have you heard of hertz before? It's sound waves are measured in hertz. Waves in general are measured in hertz. Brain waves are measured in hertz as well. A hertz is one cycle of brainwave per second. When we use these infra-low frequencies, we're talking about a tenth of a hertz all the way down to basically like a millionth of a hertz. And we can just reflect back these small, very slow brain waves. And it seems that it's almost like working with the tectonic plates of the brain, that when we're able to address these very, very low governing frequencies, in harmonics in music, right, you have resonance above that with other waves. It's the same thing with these infra-low. So we're getting to like the foundation of the house. We're dealing with the soil that the plants are planted in, right? Like, so we're getting the foundational aspects of the brain when we're dealing with these infra-low frequencies. So, and we're asking the brain, when we reflect back its activity, like, hey, you're doing this, and exercise control of your functioning. If the brain sees it and it's doing something just fine, we're not going to introduce anything negative. So that's kind of the beauty of the neurofeedback. So we're not going to introduce any symptoms that the nervous system isn't capable of, and we're also not going to create like problems where things are generally okay. Okay, so brain waves are the wiring. It's the timing and coordination of the electrical activity in our brains. Different areas of the brains have different generators of alpha waves, for example, are usually back here in the occipital lobes or different things. So where we're training on the brain makes a difference. And we make those decisions, I just hit the microphone, we make those decisions based on a thorough intake that we do with the client. I think we talked about a lot of this already. Yes, okay. So when we are helping that foundation of the brain, what we're doing is asking the brain to be in better homeostasis. And that's the next slide. So homeostasis is the body and the brain's ability to stay regulated. So some of our clients, especially those who have experienced trauma, come in with nervous systems that are really dysregulated. And so we can help support the global brain organization and the way that the brain regulates itself from the bottom up. So, for instance, if I've had some developmental trauma growing up, I might be stuck in hyperarousal all of the time. Like I might be waiting for something, I might be hypervigilant, I might have a hard time falling asleep at night, or I might be on the other side of that arousal spectrum, and I might have a hard time like being present in my body and being present in a conversation, just wanting to sleep all of the time, that kind of thing, like no get up and go. And so we want to help the brain to be able to do the full spectrum of that arousal regulation while also maintaining the stability of functioning. So sometimes the brain can be singing along and then blah, right, and you get a migraine, or it loses that regulatory ability and you have somebody with mania, right, or vertigo, seizures. Like there's a whole bunch of situations where if the brain can hold on to its stability, we can help that brain function better. Okay, so we have two primary goals when we're doing infra-low frequency neurofeedback. We're not actually, so I know some types of neurofeedback, you brought this up earlier about sometimes they'll do a brain scan and then say, here's your brain at this moment in time, and we need more alpha rhythm, or we need more high beta, or we need more whatever, right? To help you function at more of a typical brain, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Antonio. This is my understanding of like acute EEG. We're different in that because we're not saying we're trying to get you to a typical brain. We are saying, how does your brain function, and how can we help your brain get to peak performance? So what we do is we try to help by getting a really thorough intake, like I said, and then we will ask the client, almost like at an eye doctor, is A better or is B better, right? And we're getting a response from that client's nervous system as we're showing the client information, and then we're dialing in a really specific protocol for that specific client. So I think we covered a lot of that other stuff there. Okay. So neurofeedback is a journey, and we can hit the next slide there. Thank you. So, so just like Dana talked about in the last presentation, how there's some preparation before you actually do the ketamine-assisted therapy sessions, we do the same thing, and I've alluded to that a couple of times. So it starts even before we put the sensors on the head. So let's just walk through what that journey looks like from intake through training so you can get an idea for what that would look like for your clients. And if any of you have with experience with Infra-low want to chime in at any point, feel free. I'm glad to have your input too. Okay, so gathering a client history is really, it's more than asking them about their symptoms, right? Their diagnoses, sorry. So I'm gonna get their history, their developmental history, like were you separated from your mom when you were a child, a really small child, for a certain amount of time? Did you have any head injuries, right? Did you grow up with any situations in your home that were maybe considered one of the adverse childhood experiences, that kind of thing? So we're trying to get a sense of their nervous system and how it functions in that developmental stage. And then we go through and we assess physical issues, we assess attention issues, we assess mood issues. We just go through category by category, and we just try to get, if this has ever been a thing for your nervous system, I want to know about it because I want to get to know your nervous system before we do anything with you. And based on that information, it helps us to know what the priority is to start with that client. So is their priority, like they're really stable in their nervous system, but they can't sleep at night and they're really anxious and they need more calming, right? Then that's going to help me know where to put the sensors on their head when we start, because the right side of the brain usually forms first. There's a lot of like that physiological calming all of that is going to be probably more right side training. But if it's like I have straightforward ADHD, my parents had ADHD, there's not a trauma component to it, right? And it's just like I have migraines, that kind of thing. My priority is going to be training interhemispherically, both sides of their brain, to give them more stability. They might have both, and then we start with that, right? So we're going to get a really good assessment of their nervous system functioning. And then we're going to talk about their goals and their expectations for training. So we often will say, out of all of these symptoms that we talked about, what are 5 symptoms maybe that we can look at week to week? And these 5 symptoms are going to give us a window into how your nervous system is functioning. So we're going to start with a baseline of like, on a good week, 0 to 10, my nervous system does this with this symptom. Like, for example, I have insomnia, let's say. On a really good week, it's like a 2. On a really bad week, it's like a 10. I can't fall asleep at all at night. And on an average week, maybe it's like a 5. So I'm going to get a baseline of that functioning for just these windows into the clients, for depression, anxiety, whatever the symptoms are that we're wanting to look at, their goals. And then every week we're going to come back in and say, we're going to be assessing during the session, but after the session, how is this week for each of these symptoms, 0 to 10? And so we're going to get an idea, are we getting closer to our goals, or do we need to really make some more tweaks with your protocol here? So we also take a baseline continuous performance test. So everything I've been talking about so far has been more like, what's the word I want? Not anecdotal, subjective. Thank you. Yeah, subjective information, right? But this helps us get an objective assessment at the beginning. So we have this really amazing test it's called the quick test. It's a continuous performance test. And we'll take it as part of our intake, and then we take it again after 20 sessions of neurofeedback. And what it does is, we call it the world's worst video game. It's just this like little controller, and when they see a target on the screen, they push a button, and when they see a brick wall, they do nothing. And it's 20 minutes of that. It's 20 minutes of that, and it just flashes really fast on the screen. So we're getting a sense for how do they do when just like with speed and accuracy. How do they do with attention? How do they do with something's really boring? Can they maintain attention? If they're under pressure and the pressure's increased, how do they do with that? And so we get this like very boring 20-minute test, but we get a really good objective snapshot. And I have had clients that in session, they're like, I don't really feel too much difference. I'm not sure if I'm really seeing anything change. We'll take that second continuous performance test, and Morgan's nodding her head. I've seen people like 2 standard deviations better in their functioning. It's pretty interesting for people who can't sense their body or get a sense for like, how's my body responding? It's nice to have this objective test.
Is that under the...
It's not.
It's not.
Nope, it's just a really boring video game. Yeah, it's just a little controller that they push the buttons on. Yeah. So we're gathering all of this data at baseline, right? And then we discuss what we want to track. And then we talked about that a little bit.
Let me add something real quick about the quick test. Like if you have a parent who comes in, they're like, my child's just not trying in school, and you take the quick test and their brainwave, like their test is like all over the place. They can't function when it's boring, and they can't function, like they're not doing well when it's a stress part of that test. It's like, literally, this is an objective view of how that child's brain's functioning. It's like, he's trying his hardest, right? But it's not working well. And I've done that quite a bit with parents that are like, you're just not trying. So yeah, it's a really interesting, instead of a qualitative, it's very objective. So it's like, no, this is the facts of how your child's brain's functioning. Do you see this? Do you see this? So we kind of read it subjectively. It's really fascinating.
Well, and with that as well, sometimes you can ask, did you notice you were missing all of these? And if not, then that might be interesting to see if they need more testing to see if there's absence seizures going on or different things like that, where they're just losing presence, right? They're losing that ability to stay focused. So the TOVA, some of you have heard of that, the test of variable attention, right? That might not be the exact name, but it's the test they test ADHD with often. They've often, this particular format, once they saw the Othmer's format, they've changed their reporting to model it. So it's really strong. It's a really strong test. Okay, any questions at this point? I'm kind of fire hydranting all of you guys with all this information. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So in the training session, you guys saw the rooms, how they're set up. So the clinician's going to be here behind the computer. There's some software that they're going to be looking at. There's the second screen. We pulled this in from the neurofeedback room. They're going to be in that nice cushy seat that reclines. Then they're going to have this, the neuro amp that we showed you earlier, and then the EEG sensors on their head, depending on what we're training. So it's going to be listening into the brain waves, sending it in through that, that amplifier into the computer, which then sends the information back to the screen, and the picture of what they're going to watch, like a YouTube clip or something on Netflix or a game, something like that, it's going to get smaller and larger. The volume's going to get more quiet and louder. There's a tactile, you probably saw the stuffed animals sitting on, there's a tactile element that will rumble. And as the brain is observing its own activity, it's like, I'm doing that, I'm going to self-correct. It always astounds me that the brain knows that it's its own dance. Like, we're in the room and our brains are not responding to that. Mm-hmm. But when the clients are hooked up, the brain just knows. It's kind of remarkable. And so we're going to put the sensors on their scalp, and then the brain is going to observe its own activity. And then, so nothing's being introduced into the brain. And then as the client is reporting back, we're going to check in every few minutes. You know, how we're going to get some baseline symptoms like, out of 10, how tired are you today? Is there any spaciness going on? Do you feel any muscle tension? Do you have any emotions at the surface, right? We're going to just get all of that at baseline. And then as we go through and we're showing them the activity at different frequencies. So imagine a choir, right? And we're going to be zeroing in on Sam in the choir and listening into Sam, and then kind of making the rest of the choir not as important as Sam in that moment. And then based on how they're responding to listening to Sam, if Sam's a frequency, then I might raise that frequency if they're too sedated, or I might lower that frequency if they could use more calming. So we're just trying to find that Goldilocks zone where they're not too agitated and they're not too, tense, but they're not also like falling asleep and dreaming in the chair, which I've also had happen. Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if this is the right time
Sure.
for it, but it's on frequencies.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have a client that doesn't feel anything,
yeah.
do you keep the frequency the same? So I have two questions actually. Can I just ask these?
Yeah.
So do you keep the frequency the same during initial sessions if the patient doesn't feel any negative effects? Or do you start at one and then you try out another one?
Yes.
And then you kind of compare them?
Yes. So we scan like a decade of frequencies. So if I start at 0.1 and I go down to 0.01. And where I start, like if a client's already highly agitated, I'm not going to start at 0.1. I'm going to start lower. And then if they're not noticing anything, I'm only going to scan to the next decimal point. I'm going to be looking for a too low response, like wait, what was the question? Right, something like that, or they're falling asleep. If I see that, I'm going to come up. But if they don't report anything, I'm just going to do that little band, and then we're going to see what happens between sessions, because a lot of the time it's fine in the chair, and then they're like, I could not sleep last night. And then you come back and you'll make some adjustments next time. Sometimes they don't even notice outside of session. Morgan's shaking her head. So sometimes it's helpful to have, if there's another person in their house that can also provide feedback. I might watch their body language, if they're kind of stiff in the chair and then they start to relax. There's lots of cues that you can use, but people who have a harder time reporting are harder to dial in.
But you're typically looking for too low. So you keep going lower. And so if you go all the way to the bottom and they're still, I feel all right, you train it like the lowest.
So I'm only going to scan a decade at a time, like one of those frequency,
Okay.
you know, and then I'm going to go to the next frequency range. It's like I'm dialing on the car radio, right? And I'm trying to find that station that that nervous system really likes to look for, that likes to listen to. If you go too low and you keep going too low, those too low effects are going to pile up. You're going to notice. So you'll see. Some people might need the lowest. I train at the very lowest available.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as the brain trains, it seems like as their nervous system, so say they're a very highly aroused person that's had a lot of trauma. So their nervous system is used to being like so anxious all the time. Then as they train and they train and they train, and then they actually tend to lower because they're like, I'm more comfortable here. But at first they weren't comfortable there because their nervous system has never felt that like level of calm. So it's like if you're talking about a first session frequency finding, you definitely have to have the brain compare from like this to this. So like the first frequency that you try, the brain doesn't really know what it's looking at because it's the first time it's ever seen its own activity reflected back at itself. So then as you actually change those frequencies on the brain, then the brain can then start to notice the differences in the nervous system. Because as we hit different frequencies, as our brain like trains in different frequencies, we're going to feel different things. So like if we're in delta, we're asleep, right? Like if we're in theta, we're in this very subconscious dream state. As we're in alpha, like your body and brain feel different things depending on what is the dominant state of frequency it's using. So that's why we use arousal symptoms to find the frequency. So that's how so Antonio might be like more interested in that because we don't use the brain map, we use arousal symptoms, which is
In real time.
In real time. And between sessions as well. Were you going to say something?
No, it's just clearing my
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, and so we're going to just try to be very, very, very client-centric. We're going to be making sure we're tracking symptoms, not diagnoses, right? We're going to use symptoms as a window into their nervous system activity, and we're going to try to find that Goldilocks zone where they're not too hot, they're not too cold, right, in terms of activation, where they're feeling alert and also relaxed. That's our goal when we're in these sessions. Okay, do you want to, thanks, Tawna. Okay, I already talked about Windex, right? I'm going to give you these if you want. Anybody, you don't have to take them, but if you want to take this, this is a questionnaire that Tawna created for our clinic, and you can take a picture of it if you don't want to take the paper. I don't know if there's enough for everybody, but these are just some of the things. There are so many ways we can use neurofeedback. So we talked about anxiety and hypervigilance, trauma and PTSD, stress, chronic disorders, chronic pain can be really hard for some people to train. Emotional and behavioral disruption, dysregulation, attachment issues, core sense of self, even if we train along that default mode network of the brain, like being able to like get a better sense of self and self-confidence and like, you know, being more at home in their own skin. That is pretty amazing. Agitation and restlessness, that includes like rumination and so physical or mental agitation and restlessness, emotional as well. Psychosomatic symptoms, gut issues, we talk about the enteric nervous system. This is something I learned as a neurofeedback practitioner. I didn't know like butterflies in your stomach is actually part of the nervous system, right? Your digestion. If you're running away from a tiger, you're not going to go to the bathroom. You're going to be constipated, right? So like these kinds of things, if we can help people to calm their nervous system, to regulate their nervous system, even digestive system issues can be addressed. IBS, yeah, go ahead.
I noticed on here you have body awareness. What does that mean?
So
Is that
some
like
people live,
hypersensitivity?
yes,
I feel everything.
that can be that, so like that sensory input, like misophonia or like bright lights, that kind of thing. Yeah, sensory processing issues, but also some people kind of live from their head up. They don't really live in their bodies and they're kind of disconnected. Yeah, yep. Yeah, Claire Julian.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this is a great presentation, thank you. I was just wondering if any of this is would be indicated with Alzheimer's disease and some of the symptoms like agitation and that kind of thing that happens with that.
Yeah, great question. So we're not going to cure Alzheimer's, but we definitely can help slow its progression. There are some protocols that we're going to initially do this infra-low frequency, and then there's something else we do called synchrony. And there's some really amazing research with 40 hertz, showing the brain its own activity at 40 hertz that helps to slow the progression of the disease. So there's that constant onslaught because there's just physical things happening, right? But we can help alleviate some of the symptoms. Yeah, Angela, right? Okay.
I'm wondering what is the youngest age you give this?
I've worked with a 4-year-old.
Yeah, I've worked with like a 4 or 5-year-old.
I know Dan has worked with a baby.
Yeah, Dana worked with a baby.
Mm-hmm.
6 months old.
6 months.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tell me your name. I haven't met.
Aaron Gart.
Oh, Aaron.
Okay.
Welcome. Aaron has trained so many therapists, and he just is going to Spain, to Tenerife, to go give a presentation on some really cool stuff. So welcome. Thank you. Okay, so many ages, so many symptoms. It's not Windex, I promise. It's the nervous system. It's amazing. OCD and tics, so many other things. It's really, really broadly applicable. Yeah.
Is it effective with ADHD?
Yes. There's a lot of research with ADHD. And so you're going to want to find out, like, besides just the diagnosis, like what's
that does neurofeedback?
Yes. Yeah. Yep, 100%. It's often used with veterans. There was just a study published that talked about veterans with multiple traumatic brain injuries and things like that, and how neurofeedback was a really effective. There's a program called Homecoming for Veterans that actually provides free neurofeedback for veterans. I just don't know how many clinicians in Utah practice. You might know, Erin, how many clinicians in Utah practice it, but so absolutely, for sure. If we can help people get their brains out of hypervigilance and like having to focus on everything all at once, 100%.
I'm either that or falling asleep and can't pay attention.
And ADHD brains are like that, right? Like, so they're go. I can't shut it off. Or I can't. Yeah.
You go to sleep like that at night?
Yeah, usually.
No.
Yeah. So we're helping the brain have that mental flexibility to be either in that, if I need to run away from an explosive device, I can be right there, but I can also fall asleep at night, or I can be somewhere in the middle during the day and not be locked into one state.
It helps us have the top-down control instead of, the bottom-up. So that means so it helps us to be able to think and regulate with our thought. Like, I want to feel this way. I need to calm my body down, top-down control. Whereas bottom-up control would be like, I'm so agitated, let me take a hot bath and relax, right? That would be like, I'm calming my body to calm my brain. Whereas with neurofeedback, we're able to help the nervous system to be able to start, I'm starting to feel agitated. Oh, I should do this to calm down. Does that make sense?
We don't have to be intentional though, because this goes beyond conscious
It
effects.
does.
So it actually, I would probably submit that it's the bottom up, because it's self-regulating.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not like CBT where we're doing it with our mind, right? Where our body is actually in our what we call a window of tolerance, right?
Yeah.
We're able to, when we get out of it, get back to that a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
You're aligning.
Say again?
Sounds like an alignment.
Yeah.
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 It's like resetting the baseline,
Yeah.
because if you get set to hypervigilance,
Yeah.
that's like your new baseline is calm.
Yeah.
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 And we see that with trauma a lot. Their baseline's way up here, just always, so in trauma. And then we can help them reset to oh, I don't have to be in trauma all the time. Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of overlap in symptoms between complex PTSD and autism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if, say someone has autism, but they maybe don't have a trauma history, or maybe they have a trauma history, but they present as having autism. I'm wondering if there's if it would be different as far as approaching working with a client like that.
Yeah.
With the neurofeedback.
So, probably all of us who have worked with this population could give you examples and stories. So, people with autism, often their nervous system is everything is coming at them. It's so sensitive. And so, when there's a trauma component on top of it, like that calming and that ability to regulate. For some kids, it depends. I mean, it's a spectrum, right? So some kids have a really hard time keeping the electrodes on their heads at first, but you'll see from session to session that it gets easier and easier, and as they get more and more calm. So you might have to do some incentives or things for some of those kiddos initially, but then it's self-rewarding because they just feel better. And often those are the people that train more at the bottom of that frequency range. Yeah. Did you have anything? You look like you were saying something, Aaron.
Just a couple of things in there. First, I'll just say to people that it sounds kind of like precocious and such, but I'll tell them if it has to do with the nervous system or our brain, generally neurofeedback can help or impact it. And everything has to do with our brain or nervous system.
Yes.
The things that I have experienced and addressed over 15 years, about 30,000 hours of neurofeedback is just mind-boggling. And people will come and say, can you do this? I don't know, they'll try. If it has to do with the brain, we can usually get there. I, in the past, had a nonverbal, autistic, Down syndrome trauma young boy. What talk therapy are you going to do with that? Neurofeedback does great. And after a few sessions, because of the regulation, the calming, the stabilization of that nervous system, they feel it, they feel better, they come in, they want to be in that chair.
Yeah.
And so if it's also when we're treating, one thing I first had 15 years of intense trauma therapy, EMDR, group work, treatment centers, individual work, all sorts of different things before I got into neurofeedback. Great thing about neurofeedback in a session, you can address many symptoms.
Yep.
As it is, our protocol is, it's not QEEG based, other than the medic does have a QEEG direction. It is a constant assessment of where they're at, and you can address a lot of things in that session.
Amen.
It's all about integrating, stabilizing, regulating that nervous system.
Yeah. So Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, right? He just had his Trauma Research Foundation conference this past week, and we belong to an organization that presented at it. And he says in his book, even, there's a whole chapter on neurofeedback. He said, with trauma, there are some things only neurofeedback can touch. And and then he often advocates for that symptom-based assessment that's very client-centric, right, as well. I know we're running low on time because we had all of that stuff, but I think we talked about a lot of this already. Do you want to maybe do the next? Do you have a few minutes? Do you want to see an example of somebody who talks about this? It might be a little bit over our time. Is that okay? Okay. You can feel free to leave if you want, but this is Justin's story.
Justin,
he shared it so generously.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
With severe Lyme disease and type 1 diabetes, as well as some childhood sexual trauma. And for the last 12 years, I've been dependent and eventually a full-blown addiction to opiates, benzodiazepines, amphetamines, and alcohol. And I did 60 days of residential treatment in Midway, Utah, and it got me sober, but it didn't change any of the thought process. The day I got out, I still wanted to use drugs just as bad as the day that I went in. And when I say I was addicted, it consumed my life. It was unmanageable. Every second of every day, every thought was, how do I get more? How do I get money to get more? Who do I need to manipulate to get more drugs? How can I do that? Where can I find some? Will I have enough for tomorrow morning? Can I get through the night with this much? It was just, every thought I had was about how I could consume more substances. And doing the 60 days, it gave me hope again that there could be life without using, but the cravings were still just as bad as the day that I went in. I would say they were like a 9.9 out of 10. And I started doing neurofeedback with CAC probably a month or 5 weeks ago. And within 4 sessions, I didn't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. And I'm like a 2-pack a day type of smoker. And now I'm down to like 6 or 7 cigarettes a day. And it's more just because I enjoy them than it is like I'm craving them all the time. But with the opiates, benzos, alcohol, and amphetamines, my cravings went from like a 9.9 to like a 2, which is very manageable. I think that if you've ever had a substance and you're not addicted to them, you would have some cravings like a 2 out of 10. Sometimes just being a regular person, when you get stressed or when something comes up that's just annoying, you kind of have that thought of like, oh, I wish there was just something I could swallow and get rid of this annoyance or this thing that's bugging me right now. But for me to be at a 2 out of 10 is insane because I was on heavy opiates, fentanyl, heroin, morphine, and I was on really high doses of all of those things. And for me to only be thinking about it like 1 or 2 times a day is incredible because it used to be like 30,000 times a day. But I have a thought that's like, where is this next hit coming from? And I'm so grateful that I was able to do the neurofeedback, and I'm still continuing to do it because it's not only helping with my addiction, which is why I started to do it. But after about 5 sessions, I no longer have nightmares from my childhood sexual trauma. I haven't had a single one since my 5th session. And to me, that's incredible because it made it so that I had restless sleep. I was always tired, which then drove me to want to use drugs more, like amphetamines. Just because the nightmares were so bad that I couldn't sleep through them. And when I wake up from a nightmare, I would purposely drink coffee, stay awake, because I was so afraid of going back to sleep and going into another nightmare. And I also, in residential treatment for my addiction, I had nightmares every night, but they were about using drugs. And I was so proud of myself for getting sober. But then I would have these dreams where I shot up or snorted something, and I would feel so guilty when I woke up because I couldn't tell the difference between dream and reality. So I thought when I woke up, I had slipped up the night before. And those dreams are gone now too. But, excuse me, that was probably after about 10 sessions of neurofeedback. And like Danielle said, the thing that made it really interesting to me was there is absolutely zero effort on my part except for driving to the office and getting hooked up. And then you just sit in the chair and watch your favorite TV show, and then your cravings go away, or your nightmares go away. And it's been the most effective thing that I've tried for my mental health. And I've been admitted to the psych ward 2 or 3 times. I have been to the Provo Behavioral Hospital. I've done every antidepressant you can think of. Smoke marijuana consistently. I've done like 250 sessions of ketamine therapy, and I was very suicidal for like 6 years because my health was so bad that I couldn't get out of the lazy boy to even go to the bathroom. I just had a urinal that I would pee in and a bucket that I would vomit in, and I was in a wheelchair for a long time and just in agonizing pain all the time. So being that suicidal, I would do ketamine, and it would work, but it would only work for like 5 days, and then I'd have to do another session or else I would want to attempt suicide again. And so it helped, but the neurofeedback has helped a lot more. Yeah, I've also done EMDR. I used to have this PTSD type of experience where I would be conscious, but it was like a daydream nightmare almost, where I had woken up from a coma one time. I was incubated and I had 2 PICC lines in both of my arms. I had a colostomy bag and a catheter and an insulin pump and a dilaudid pump and a Zofran pump and a neck cord for dialysis. And so I woke up and every hole in my body was filled with some tube, and I didn't remember how I had gotten there. And they asked me what was the last thing I remembered, and I was like, oh, I felt really bad because the last thing that I remembered was driving home drunk from a movie. And I thought that I killed some little kid or that I killed the other person in my car. I was like, and I was alone when I woke up in ICU at the University of Utah. And I was alone for 20 minutes, and it was the scariest 20 minutes of my whole life. Thinking that I had killed someone, or that maybe I was in some sort of crazy accident and I lost my wife or a best friend, or I had done something really terrible. And that experience, that 20 minutes, that would happen over and over and over again for like the next 5 years. And it would probably happen once or twice a week where I'd be fully awake, but like it was like a light switch turned off. I was back in that hospital room with non-working kidneys and no thyroid and no adrenals, and just tubes coming out of me everywhere, and having nothing to remember, and not knowing if I lost someone important to me or if I had taken someone important away from someone else. And so I did about 25 sessions of EMDR for that specific experience. And after about the 15th session, it started to happen less frequently. And after about 20 sessions, it hasn't happened since. I still do have sleeping nightmares about that, but since the neurofeedback, EMDR was about 5 years ago, and I hadn't had that experience when I'm awake, but I still have nightmares maybe once every couple of months about that experience. And since the neurofeedback started, I haven't had a single one. And it's incredible because you don't have to do anything. It almost feels like it's cheating, or that it's what's the word I'm trying to think of? It just feels like it's not real. I mean, because I've been dealing with these types of PTSD and nightmares and addiction cravings and suicidal depression for over a decade, and it's not like it comes and goes. It's like every second of every day for a decade. I didn't know if I was going to wake up this morning either because I OD'd, or just because my physical health was so bad that my heart stopped, or because I was attempting suicide again. And so that recovery from that after 10 years, it's like the most incredible thing that's ever happened.
Okay, so obviously a very, not everybody is this severe in their presentation, but you get a sense for how powerful the tool is, right? And so Justin was really generous to share that with us, and he's one of so many clients that have benefited from this. So we belong to something called the Neurofeedback Advocacy Project. If you're part of an organization, I don't know if any of your organizations are interested in learning more about neurofeedback, and you serve underserved populations, this is a really great organization to get involved with, and we would love to help connect you. There's an ambassador program where we can help connect you with them, and you get easier access to equipment and training and all kinds of things. They do the infra-low frequency model, and then we haven't even scratched the surface. Like, we've been talking about this passionately for a while, but there's still something called synchrony. There's something called alpha theta that helps with trauma treatment and learned beliefs and habits and all of that. So if you're interested in that, this helps us also to track our results. We're part of a research gathering. This is the advocacy part of it. We're trying to make sure that everybody knows about it and that everybody can get access to it. So after 20 sessions here at Healing Pathways, we generally see 46% reduction in the severity of clients' concerns, 64% reduction in self-harm, suicidal ideation, 75% reduction in disciplinary actions at school, 67% reduction in academic performance and attendance problems, 86% reduction in drugs and alcohol relapses, 37% improvement in stress management in that first 20 sessions. And then people will often go on to train more. Well, it's amazing. It's a really amazing modality. And this is why there are many of us that practice it in this room. We're going to gather and talk more about it excitedly after the presentation. And then we have a lot of client reviews of neurofeedback. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that, but it's been an amazing tool. I wish that I had found it earlier in my journey as a clinician. So anyway, it's the foundation. There are other things like synchrony and alpha theta that we haven't really even touched on, that we're asking the brain initially to hold on to that conscious control. In those, it's a little bit more like that ketamine experience where we're asking the brain to let go of that cortical control, make new associations, make new, like...
It's almost exactly the same,
yeah,
but without the psychedelic.
Without the psychedelic,
And the dissociation and the dizziness
and
many other things.
And the brain gets to decide what it's ready to work on and where it wants to go and be done when it's done and all of that. So, yep. Okay.
Let go and clench.
Yes. So we use the infra-low as the foundation to get that stability. And then when we let go of that stability, there's the possibility of like some of those instabilities returning. So then we go back to that protocol and we stabilize again afterwards. So, okay. Here's some key takeaways. I've kept you over. We have some people wanting to meet, but any questions? We've kind of been talking throughout, but anything that we can answer. Okay, if you're interested for yourself for neurofeedback, we do have some neurofeedback intakes that we're offering since you came today. There's a sign up on that. And they're complimentary for the first 20 people, I think. Is that right? Is that what, 10 people?
She's actually in the other room,
okay,
sitting on a chair. This is anyone who wants CE.
Oh, CE credits. Okay.
It's right on the team.
There's also some discount cards, maybe, I think. And then if you're interested in your agency learning about neurofeedback, we'd love to connect you to the Neurofeedback Advocacy Project as well. So we'll be happy to talk with you about that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. Okay, thanks.
You have a computer back.
Okay. Go eat some charcuterie, go mingle, whatever. And then, Kristen, is it
well,
just
I think
for us
the
to meet in
advocacy
here for
project,
the
you guys
consortium?
like sort of
Okay.
underserved, like that would be a good way because it is
Yeah.
a cheaper program. So
I think
EEG
so,
info, like
yeah.
I can send you websites and stuff. So EEG info is the original Othmer Method trainers, and they're back in California. So to go there, you can, yeah, and I can write that down for you. So use a table. So
thanks, Tawna.
Yeah, I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, you're great. Thanks. It was like whirlwind with the technological issues, but well, I'm glad because I'm like, well, everybody like is so familiar with it, so I'm glad that it was okay.
Let me make sure I get the other. So,
Neurofeedback Advocacy Project. It's less expensive, and you guys work with first responders. You'd be perfect candidates for that. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Do you mind if I grab this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sign.
So nice to meet you, Angela. Did that give you like an overview? Yeah. To kind of give you and I played it because I knew you deal with addiction, so I was like, do I skip it? Or for sure. Yes. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it because I think it's helpful. And there is that ambassador program, so we'd love to.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Sorry. Okay, so Neurofeedback Advocacy Project, or we call it NAP. So these guys, so EGFL, they're the original Othmer Method,
actually been through the full training.
also like built kind of this type of neurofeedback. And this is like the most used neurofeedback that I know of. So we also use the Othmer Method with the NAP, but the NAP project is like the statistics that you see that I showed.
You mean with the
And they also have like so we're ambassadors, so
this neurofeedback advocacy
you can get training through NAP cheaper if you have
doing some pro bono or something like that.
Training, and then like
they
you
generally
know
work with
you can
agencies that
also
work
have like
but
use their tracking
system,
like their symptom tracking, and like gives you the data.
then they'll
So
include you. You need to have 2 people at each agency.
So there's now 2 main ways to be able to symptom tracking data. They also use a different tracking system for this, but anyway, so this is what that one looks like when you go to it. Okay, and then let me just pull up another info. And then when you pull up EEG info, it looks like this is their website. So this is Sue Othmer. She actually passed away just a couple years ago. But her and her husband are the ones who have started the Othmer Method.
Yeah, please.
Infra-low.
And we'll have more gatherings like virtually, I'm sure.
But there's a ton of like research on their website. There's you know.
Yeah, please. Yeah, Trevor has my contact
research, and there's different clinician, like they have a whole, you know, context for clinicians. Anyway, so there's 2, you know, they're good websites to go to learn about it. But like we could help, me and Carrie can help you figure out how to get into the space and where you want to get trained, like what is best for you guys, you know, if you wanted to. So
Thank you, Antonia. Matthew, so good to meet you. I'm so glad you came.
What is this?
Fascinating. I put myself on your list.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, see ya.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's really amazing. It's just been like over 6 years I've been doing this. It's just like every client, you're just like,